Welcome back to the Jungle Fever podcast. As I forgot to do something, I'm going to do it right here as we get things rolling. I'm Ethan Sargent. Aiden Crowley is alongside me as he typically is. It is April the 14th of 2026, and we are just about 12-ish days away
Yep.
from draft day. 10. It's creeping up quicker than you think. It is coming up next week from Pittsburgh. The draft is riling up. We're seeing things happen left, right, and center. It's getting to be smokescreen season. You've got a lot of people saying a lot of different things about a lot of different people. It's kind of that
Aiden
time.
Crawford might be a top 10 pick.
Yeah,
That's something to
hopefully
celebrate.
Cleveland. I wouldn't mind seeing him in brown and orange. But again, it's that time of year where a lot of teams are putting stories out. It's kind of tough to actually know what to believe just because if we're being 100% honest, nobody has the right information, right? It is purely these insiders who say they know what's going to happen. They don't really know what's going to happen. They just want you to click on their article, right? So it's crazy, and we're in the same boat. We know nothing. We've got no inside information, but we're going to talk about it because that's what we like to do here on the Jungle Fever Pod. We're going to talk a little bit today about some prospects we just generally like. I think we can just kind of have that fun discussion of some cool players because we've talked a lot about a lot of different guys throughout these last couple of weeks. But I feel like we could take some deeper dives into some higher level, into some of these players. You know, the Bengals. We could go into some of the higher players, but also some guys in those later rounds. We did that a couple weeks ago where we went through some prospects. We could take a little bit deeper dive into some of those guys as well. Let me real quick pull up here, Aiden, while we get this. I'm going to pull up the big and long visit list. This is as of 3 days ago. Every player the Bengals have met with in some capacity. This is a long list, so bear with me. I do know you can add to this list Mansour Delane. He was on a visit yesterday with Cincinnati. They've met with almost every big defensive prospect you can think of. So actually, I'm going to scratch that. I feel like it's not really worth our time to just go through
Yeah,
this whole list. There's like
it's
there's
fine.
like 50 people on this list because it's got every visit,
Mhm.
every meeting because there's only you only have those 30 meetings, but then you've got other stuff. So I don't really think that's worth it. But the big ones, they have met with Reuben Bain. They have met with, like I said, Mansour Delane, as well as Jermod McCoy, the two big corners in this draft. They've met with both of them. They've met with, I mean, trying to think of like some other big guys. Caleb Downs is a confirmed meeting. They have met with Caleb Downs. They have met with Jeremiah Love. We talked about that a couple weeks ago, but Jeremiah Love, they met with him. Avion Terrell out of Clemson, David Bailey out of Texas Tech. Um, they have met with Caden Proctor. They have met with Jeremiah, or excuse me, with a couple of the big old linemen as well, Fano, Myalga. So it's going to be really interesting to see what direction the Bengals go in, which we've talked about that a lot, but we could probably save that discussion next week. We will do our mock draft next week. We will do all our picks. The Bengals have, I believe, 8 selections in this year's draft. I think they don't have a fifth, but they have two sixths and they have two sevenths. So bonus picks. I know the Flacco trade netted them a pick, and I think Logan Wilson trade netted them that extra seventh round pick. So they've got some extra late round picks to play with. We'll see if they maybe try to use those to move up, maybe, or if they just stick with them. But we will see how that shakes out next week. Let's start off before we get into that breakdown. Well, let's talk a little bit about that Reuben Bain story that came out yesterday. Obviously, a serious situation. A couple weeks ago, or a couple of years ago, Reuben Bain was cited for reckless driving. Unfortunately, as a result of an accident that occurred during that incident, a life was lost. A young woman lost her life. So very, very sad. Rest in peace to her family, or to her and her family, excuse me. But when you look at the optics of the situation, right? This has happened before. You think about the stories coming out in this era of reporting, Aiden, and you know, I think instantly the mind jumps to Laramie Tunsil, right? That's the first, I think, the cautionary tale, right, where that the infamous picture of him with that gas mask drops pretty much what, like an hour before the draft on draft night, and he slides, you know, from what was he was a projected top five pick all the way down into the teens, which is kind of what the same situation Reuben Bain is in. Do you think that this will have an effect, or The reporting was that most of these teams knew about this going in. Do you think a lot of these teams have kind of checked and cleared this from Reuben Bain?
This seems like a situation that's been vetted. From everything that I've read, it seems like I this is my problem with NFL insiders,
Mm,
which is a
I
whole
was going to
different
get into
topic
that.
of, yeah, a
Yeah.
whole different conversation, is that they were sitting on this information. Teams knew about this information. I guess they just didn't really want it that public at the time, whether that's Reuben Bain's agent or whether that's NFL teams looking to take Reuben Bain. Eventually it gets out, whatever. But teams know this. Teams have included this in their scout and in their prep and in their interviews with Reuben Bain. So I don't know necessarily how much it's going to change his draft stock on draft night. Obviously, an extremely unfortunate situation. It's one that I can almost guarantee you Reuben Bain wants to have back, obviously. So it's unfortunate, but I don't know how much it necessarily changes his draft stock. I did see a secondary report that there might be another incident that's being withheld with Reuben Bain. That
I think it's
hasn't been
another driving incident.
widely reported on yet. So we'll wait to see. I know like if I'm in a GM chair, obviously this raises a ton of questions for me, especially for a Cincinnati Bengals team that has had its fair share of headaches in the
And
past.
driving issues
Exactly.
literally last season. Mr.
Yes.
Brick, looking at
Yep,
you.
with Cam Taylor Britt. And so I don't know how much really I want to invest in something like that. It just depends, I guess, on the front office and what kind of risk they're willing to take with a guy that is as talented as Reuben Bain is. But there's obviously a lot of question marks around him. There were question marks just with his size and his build, and then you throw this into the mix. It's an incredibly polarizing player. It's an incredibly interesting player, and now you add this on top, an incredibly sad and an unfortunate situation. So I'll be interested to see how it works out. But in my opinion, I don't see this necessarily leading to some drastic slide where he falls into like the 20s. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just like you said, echoing that, it's a awful situation. You feel like I said for the young lady's family. Nobody ever deserves or should lose their lives in a situation like that. And I think again, it would be something where if you, as a like you said, from the GM chair, when you sit down and you have these meetings with these prospects, you have to talk about it, right? And I'm sure it's not something that Ruben Bain's particularly keen or wants to talk about, right? But you have to understand that you made a mistake, right? And look, the other thing that's important to note is that all charges were dropped, right? He was initially charged with reckless driving. The charges were dropped. And he was her family, the woman's family actually came out with a statement saying that they didn't blame Ruben at all for anything that happened that night. Just a very sad and unfortunate thing that happened, and they wanted privacy. And that's another thing that I wanted to get to because I feel like, and you kind of touched on this a second ago, the way that these things are reported is so, I'm just gonna say icky. Like it's just
It's
icky.
weaponized, is what it
It
is. You
is
can just call it. You
100%.
you can you can call it
It's
what it
funny.
is.
I had a conversation with my dad about this not an hour ago, where it was, you just seen, right? We've seen over these last couple weeks, not a lot of the big guys are talking about this, but this wild situation that's unfolding between Diana Rossini and Mike Vrabel. And that is, again, as two journalists, right? That's a whole set of can of worms. We could do a whole separate podcast about that. But you're seeing now how a lot of these journalists kind of pick and choose what to report, what not to report. And now this, one guy, I don't have his name off the top of my head, but there was one guy who initially broke this story. And then I think within 15, 20 minutes, all the big names jump in and say they got vetted, this, that, whatever. So just a weird thing, I think. And, I don't think this will take Reuben Bain off the Bengals draft board, but it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, it's so I find it always interesting when you have these sorts of conversations, especially around this time of the year. Nothing is leaked. Like that term leaked, I is a buzzword in my opinion. Things are deliberately told to certain individuals and certain insiders with the idea that it will come out eventually, and the timing of it is very important. People use it all the time for leverage and people try to throw some dirt on people's names to get them to potentially slide. That stuff happens all the time. It's slimy. It's part of the business. That's why I don't necessarily this again is a whole different conversation, but I don't know if I necessarily view somebody like Adam Schefter as this hardcore Big J journalist. He's an insider. There's absolutely a difference. Um, and there's ways to play the game when it comes to that. And it is a game within the game. I think this situation obviously is somewhat different, but at the same time, like if Ian Rappaport, if Adam Schefter knew this information and just decided to withhold it because Reuben Bain's camp wanted them to or whatever, I don't know. That doesn't necessarily sit right with me, but that's coming from a journalistic perspective, I guess, and not
Yeah.
necessarily like a that's not how the NFL works.
No,
So
again, for those who don't know, we both have worked in the journalistic fields, right? I think, when you think about it from that perspective, it changes things a little bit as opposed to when we just talk as fans, as Bengals fans. So, yeah, a little bit of an interesting situation. Again, I don't personally think this is gonna change too much about what Reuben Maine is because especially it's not like this is something that's just coming to light for the first time, right? All these teams kind of knew about this over these last couple months. I don't
yeah,
think it's something that's going to affect Reuben Bain's stock too much. We did have a Bengals local pro day. Um, I believe it was either today or yesterday. And there are a bunch of players from both the University of Cincinnati, the University of, fortunately, Miami of Ohio, and
it
I
was
think a
this
lot of a
morning.
lot of players that grew up from local Cincinnati area high schools. So from UC, offensive tackle DeAndre Buford, linebacker Jack Dingle, love this guy, and center Gavin Gerhardt, tight end Patrick Gurd, defensive end Jalen Hunt, defensive end CJ McCray. Cornerback, awesome name, by the way, Matthew McDoom. Defensive tackle, Isaiah Rogers. Safety, Xavier Williams. And a familiar name here, cornerback, Logan Wilson.
Not bad.
Um, Miami, you've got five players. Safety, Elijah Blakely. Running back, Jordan Brunson. Linebacker, Jackson Kuwach, who went to Lakota West, as did safety, Silas Walters. And then guard, Austin Uke. A couple other players, a couple of smaller players from Ohio State that grew up in the Cincinnati area, including kicker Jaden Fielding, defensive tackle Tywone Malone Jr., and then a bunch of players from local high schools that went to other colleges. So, for example, the younger brother of former Bengals quarterback Sean Clifford, Liam Clifford, who was a wide receiver at Penn State, linebacker James Camden, who went to Anderson High School, who went to Western Michigan, linebacker Cam Jr., who went to Eastern Kentucky, went to Middletown High School, and then offensive tackle Quincy Hughes, who's from Wofford and went to Princeton. Uh, I'm not going to dive too much into this. I don't like that this guy was invited personally. Jalen Kitna, who is the son of former Bengals quarterback John Kitna, he went to UAB. Tight end David Larkins from App State, he went to Elder. Running back Cam Porter, who's from LaSalle, he went to Northwestern. And finally, defensive tackle James Thompson Jr., who went to Illinois and went to Roger Bacon High School. So it's a cool thing that I think the Bengals do,
Yeah.
with the exception. Again, I don't want to dive too much into what Jalen Kitna's past looks like, but not a huge fan of him getting invited. So
No. I think I'm
cool
gonna segue
opportunity.
away. Yeah, no, it's a
Yeah.
cool opportunity. I'm gonna segue away from the Kidna stuff, but I think the high school football scene around. Why did it zoom in so close? The high school football scene around here obviously is really good. It's really,
For
really
those
good.
of you who don't know,
Um,
Ohio high school football, it is like
yeah,
there's Texas, there's California, Georgia and Florida, and I would put Ohio right there at five.
yeah,
I think that's it gets wild. I mean, we saw it Paycor Stadium. The entire lower bowl got packed out for that Elder Xavier playoff game last
mhm.
year. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. So it's really good, and it's a no-brainer. I mean, Zach Taylor goes to a lot of St. X games. Like when St. X plays Moeller, like Zach Taylor's
Yep.
there.
Yep.
There's so much talent, so might as well utilize it in your backyard, right?
And it's the whole state, not just Cincinnati. Columbus has some phenomenal teams. Cleveland's got some great teams. There's some amazing high schools from up in the Toledo, Dayton area. And then, I mean, we both went to school in Southeast Ohio. There's plenty of talent down here too. So it's a great hotbed of a state. And I always talk up the high school town here because I've worked in high school football for the last couple of years. So it's been really cool to see. And I always appreciate the Bengals giving some of those kids an opportunity to show their skills in front of some Bengal scouts. So let's talk about some prospects. Let's spend these last kind of 20 minutes. I think we're literally just going to spend whatever time we've got left before our Zoom time runs out, just talking about some guys we like. Let's talk some shop. Let's
Yeah.
talk some ball here.
Let's
I'm literally
do.
just going to open it up.
I was gonna say
I,
you want to do it like this. So let's go. We're in charge of the Bengals war room, right?
okay.
And we have our big board. What does your
Okay.
big board
I
look
like
like?
where this is going.
Well, how like one through five? We can go back and
Okay.
forth. What does your big board look like? Who is
I like
one?
this. I like
Anybody's on
this.
the board.
Let's
Anybody's
start
on the board.
off. Let's start off. And I think what we'll do is just give me your top three, maybe. Let's start off at cornerback. Start off at cornerback. Give me your top three. If you need a second to think, we can take a second to think. I think, yeah, I've got my top three. Um,
I have
but
two. It's that third. That's yeah.
I've got
Okay.
my third. I could go
Okay.
first then.
Yeah. Go ahead.
My third is D'Angelo Pons, out of Indiana. Undersized is the knock, but everything else, I'm there with him. The athleticism ran a four. We talked about, I believe we talked about him last week. Ran a 4.3 4. I think he ran a 4.37 40-yard dash. And then it's the intangibles. Just watch the Oregon game, the second Oregon game. I mean, he was unbelievable. He held, I mean, look, Oregon were banged up a little bit and they made some mistakes, but he was unbelievable in that football game. And he was just a backbone. I mean, that Indiana defense had a number of phenomenal players, but he just felt like a backbone of that defense. He was a leader as well. He had been on the previous Indiana team, right? He didn't come with Cignetti, I believe. He was somebody who stuck around when Cignetti came in and helped to change the culture from within. Didn't bring it from James Madison, but helped to change it. Bengals need guys like that in this locker room. So I'll go with Pons at three. Then you've obviously got these top two of Mansour Delane out of LSU and Jermon McCoy to Tennessee. I'm going to put Delane an inch ahead of McCoy. It is very, very tight. The gap is not quite as big as I think a lot of Bengals fans think it is. It is a close gap. Yes, the instant jump to is, well, McCoy didn't play last year. The ACL is a concern. Yes, 100%. It is there. There will be medical tests, and I'm sure the Bengals looked at it. I'm sure 31 other NFL franchises looked at it. But when you look at what he just did as pro day, that looks like a pretty healthy football player to me, right? And again, the athleticism, jumps, and that sophomore year tape that he has at Tennessee is some of the best you'll see from anybody in this class. Just don't watch the Ohio State tape, but a lot of guys get burnt by number four. It's okay. So, Jermon McCoy is there, and then Mansour Delane, I think, is just the most well-rounded cornerback prospect for me in this draft. You just get everything, right? The athleticism is there. He's not quite as fast as McCoy is, but everything else, again, high level, good in man coverage, solid in zone, can play a lot of different roles. When you play in the SEC, you're always getting challenged with high level, and that goes for McCoy as well. And it also goes for D'Angelo Pons, the Big Ten. You're always playing against high level opposition. You've gone against the best of the best. So I just put Delane a hair above McCoy. I think it's those slight medical concerns and some of the little things with McCoy that just keep him below Delane. But it is very, very close, Aiden. I'll go over to you.
Yeah, no, I agree. Pond scares me.
Hmm.
I'm very
Interesting.
much scared. He's in the second percentile for corners in terms of both height and arm length.
Yep.
That just it just scares me. You think about guys like so first round picks who were in extreme size outliers, and I'm gonna read some of these lists off to you, and I want you to kind of tell me which one of these you feel like really panned out well. Not saying that Pons is going to be in that first round, but Nate Wiggins was first percentile in weight. He's been solid for Baltimore, but not been, I don't think, reaped the rewards of a first round pick. Byron Murphy, first percentile for height. I don't think that's mattered too much for him. He's been all right.
He's
Kalijah
been pretty good.
Cansey, first percentile in arm length. Billy Price, first percentile in arm length. Yeah, that didn't work out. Lindenbaum, that worked out well for Baltimore. Xavier Worthy hasn't worked out. Kyler Murray, some question marks. I think he's talented. Bryce Young,
I
same
was just about to
thing.
say Bryce Young's got to be there.
Kenny Pickett again, and then Evan Ingram. Those were first round guys who were first or second percentile in one of the measurables, extreme size outliers. Pons has two of those. I agree with you in terms of all the intangibles. It's just you can't teach height, you can't teach arm length. It scares me a little bit. So I would have the same top two guys. My third guy would be Avion Terrell
Okay.
at Clemson. He's so fluid. His athleticism, the way he flips his hips is unbelievable.
Mm.
He's an extreme athlete. Obviously, his brother is incredible in the NFL as well. He's slightly undersized, not as much as Pons, but he's 5'11". But he's 186 and no picks last year. But I mean, he still had 48 tackles. He had 3 sacks. He had 9 pass deflections. I love Terrell out of Clemson. I think he's so.
Injuries for Terrell concern me a little bit.
Yep. And it.
Just a couple of little nagging ones here and there. He didn't test his pro day.
Mhm.
He's also a little smaller, but I like Terrell as a prospect too. I think two other corners to keep an eye on for the Bengals, especially higher in the draft. Chris Johnson out of San Diego State. We've talked about him a little bit. Shined at the Senior Bowl. Is somebody who can really
I think
take
he could
that
go
jump. I think
early
for the
round
Bengals, and then
two.
Colton Hood. What'd you say?
I think Chris Johnson could go early round two. I think he could.
And then Colton Hood out of Tennessee, Jermon McCoy's running mate, another very good corner, very balanced player.
Mhm.
Colton Hood is. So let's jump. Let's stay in the secondary. Let's go to safety. We've obviously got there. There are some really high level players in and around here. I've got my top three. I think this top three is probably a breakaway three, and then there's kind of a second tier of some other solid players. Um, but Aiden, I'll let you go first with this one. Give me your top three safeties. And this one I think it's important because I think it is three top guys. Give me the order here of where you'd rank. I'm just going to say I think the top three here in Downs, Tyneman, and McNeil Warren.
Yeah, I go Downs one. I just think he's the most complete player. I think he was if not the best, the second best player in college football for 2 straight years. Him and his teammate, Jeremiah Smith, were probably the two guys that you really thought about. Incredible athlete. He did kick returns for Ohio State. He had a kick return touchdown. Ryan Day has said multiple times that if he wanted to be a high power four running back, he could have been out of high school. Decided to play safety. Um, Obviously, he's an off-ball box safety. That part's slightly positional value wise in terms of what the Bengals look for. It will be interesting to see how they value. We've said that time and time again. We beat that drum. But he always seems to make the right play. He's incredibly smart, incredibly instinctual, always in the right area. So I would go him one. I don't. This is probably a hot take based off consensus. Maybe this is my Mac bias coming in, but I like McNeil Warren out of Toledo too. You can't teach 6'4", 200 at safety and have that
Mhm.
range and that size and that ability to almost like a Nick Emamori type of build. I kind of fall in love with. Now people will be like, "Oh, he played in the MAC." It's worked out pretty well for guys like Quinyon Mitchell in Philadelphia. I don't care if you can play, you can play. I don't care where you played.
Like that goes for a lot of these like mid-major guys. I think a lot of people like, and I say mid-major, and I put that in air quotes. Like a lot of like Max Crosby is one of the best edge rushers in the league.
He
Went to
went to
Eastern
Stanford.
Michigan,
Yeah,
right? Like there's just countless
yeah. I
examples
don't
of
care.
great players, and it's not exclusive to just the MAC, right? Ashton Genty was a Heisman candidate at Boise State, right? Like this, it's not it's a G5 has unbelievable athletes and talent in it too. I don't necessarily like that notion. And
Yeah.
I was right with you on that.
Yeah, no, if he could play, he can play. And then to no fault of his own, I have Thieneman at three. I think he is similar to Downs. I think he's just a very complete player. Like there's not a lot of holes in his game. You like what he can do in coverage. He had 2 picks last year, but he's also a willing run defender as well. He's 6', 200. He's got good size. Very solid. Very, very, very solid. So that would be my list.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Downs at one. I just think again, yeah, he's a quarterback of a defense, right? Like he just reads the game better than probably anybody in this draft, I think. Just a high level football player. I have Tyneman just ahead of McNeil Warren, just because I think Tyneman is ready to start off the jump. I think when you go, he was at Purdue, transfers to Oregon, was instantly a leader there, instantly a big part of that very high level defense for the Ducks last year. I think he's got a similar ability to be able to roll through and be a big time player in that roster. And then McNeil Warren, I think through no fault of his own, like you said with Tyneman is three. I think you like no issue with rating him just ahead either. I think it's a 1A or it's a 2A, 2B type scenario. I think NFL teams will be happy with any of those three guys. I think they're all very, very capable safeties. keep an eye on AJ Halsey and Bud Clark. Those are my two kind of lower tier-ish guys. The Bengals, I think, could target later in the draft because I do think a safety will be taken. Where that may be is up to up to debate. Let's go to linebacker. Let's stay on defense. Let's go to linebacker. I think there's obviously a pretty clear one here, but there are plenty of other good options here at the linebacker position. I am not going to count Arvell Reese in linebacker. He is going to be an edge rusher here, so we'll stay away from Arvell Reese. Do you want to go first this time, or do you want me to drop my three? I've
Sure,
got my three.
I'll take the obvious one. Sonny
Yeah,
Styles, a
go
freak.
ahead.
He's a freak of nature. End of discussion. Incredible, incredible athlete. We all saw the RAS score, 6'5", 245. Can play a little bit of edge if you need him to. That's not really where he thrives, but he thrives off the ball where he has space. He's able to be an athlete and utilize his instinct and close that space very quickly. I feel like if he's there at 10, the Bengals are probably sprinting to the podium for that pick. I think if the Bengals have their big board, he's somewhere in the top five. I would assume if you put everybody in the draft on a board, I would think that he's at least fifth on that list. Next for me, I really like Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas.
Hmm.
A similar thing, just incredible
Think
athlete.
like two through like seven here is very interchangeable.
Yep. 6'2", 238. And you feel that 238. He's a
Mm,
thumper.
he
He
is.
hits hard. He is always in the mix. He had 70 tackles. He had slight injury concerns, correct? Didn't he miss a little bit of time with
Yeah, he
Texas?
missed some time both this year and last year with
Yeah.
injuries.
But when healthy, he looked like, I mean, obviously Sonny Styles, but he looked like one of the best linebackers in the country. And then for me, I you would think that I would go to the Cincinnati guy, being a Cincinnati guy, and Jake Goldie. I do like him, but I'm gonna go with another old dude. I really like Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. Just as solid as they come. He's not gonna wow you athletically, but he's played a lot of football, and you can tell he's played a lot of football. Incredibly smart, incredibly instinctual. 128 tackles for that Texas Tech team. That was one of the best defenses in the country. He was, like you mentioned with Downs, he was their quarterback. Jacob Rodriguez was the guy who was
Yep.
the shot caller and did a lot of things for him. Also, very good in pass coverage. He had 6 deflections. He had 4 picks. Um,
Mm,
so I really like Rodriguez. He's just on the older side, which you just did with Demetrius Knight. However, I think Rodriguez has a little bit more of a proven track record than a guy like Knight did. So.
yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I've got Sonny at one. Don't really think I need to say much more than you already said. Just a crazy good football player. I've also got Rodriguez at two, but I have a different three. When you listen to this guy talk, it's scary how much football he knows, and it's CJ Allen out of Georgia. It is terrifying. There was an interview this guy did. I can't remember where it is, but somebody asked him to break down a scheme. And oh my God, it was like we watch anime. It's like Gojo hitting you with unlimited void. It's literally just bam, like so much information. They gave this guy a green dot as a freshman in Georgia's defense, which is
Mhm.
one of the most Kirby Smart is one of the most complicated defenses in the country, and he gave this guy a green dot as a freshman. You know how good you have to be to earn that right? So yeah, I will take a guy with that sort of knowledge and expertise on my defense any of the week. I love Golday too. You mentioned him, local product. I think the thing about Golday is he's just scratching the surface. He's a converted edge rusher, so he is just kind of getting into the motions of being a linebacker. So really quickly, because I don't think there's two more positions I want to hit, but we are running a little low on time. Let's go to offensive tackle. Give me a quick fire top three here if the Bengals decide to go in this direction in the draft.
So from the Bengals perspective, or just like from a big board
I
perspective?
mean, the Bengals could. It's not. I wouldn't rule out an alignment at 10. So keep an eye on it.
I think a guy like Maui Noah makes a lot of sense for the Bengals. I don't think he'll be there at 10, but he's somebody who could kick in and play guard. He's kind of like that swing tackle. It's interesting. I don't know at the next level which one he plays, honestly,
Yeah.
which is interesting for a guy that you feel like is probably the best in the class. He played only 16 games I say only. He played 16 games for Miami this season. And then next for me is probably Spencer Fano from Utah. Only played 12 for Utah this year, but I like him. And then there's a drop off. In my opinion, I think there's kind of a steep drop off. I've seen a lot of smoke for this guy for Georgia, out of
Mhm.
Georgia for Cleveland. He's probably my third best with Monroe Freeling, but I feel like he needs a year to just kind of
He's
learn.
young,
Yeah,
super raw.
I don't know how good it's going to
Yeah.
go if he starts right away.
Yeah,
But
I definitely need some more.
if he goes to a spot like Cleveland, he's going to start right away. But maybe Cleveland's comfortable with just eating that, knowing that they're going to get their quarterback next year, and
I
they're
mean, yeah,
okay.
in Cleveland, I mean, they did
Trial
make
by
some
fire.
moves. They brought in Elgton Jenkins. They brought in a couple other guys, but like they still have a lot of work to
Yeah.
do on that O line. So I feel like Cleveland is going either O line or they're going receiver. I think, or
Yep.
like a Carnell Tate or a Jordan
Yep.
Tyson. I think it's going to be one of those two. We're going
That
to
would be
stay away
nice.
from receivers because the Bengals don't need it. At least not in the first round. They may well take one later. So, I have Fano a little bit ahead of Myalga just because I think Fano's a day one tackle. Myalga's a day one guard. I think that's truly positional value.
Mhm.
And then I have Freeling at 3. I think Freeling could well end up being the best tackle in this draft. It's just he needs time, 100%. So let's spend these last. We got about 6 or 7 minutes left. Let's dunk down and talk about edge rushers because these are fun. This one I might ask for. I don't think Arvell Reese is good. I think I have Arvell Reese as 1, but I don't think he's going to be there. I also don't think David Bailey is going to be there, and I have him at 2. So I want you to give me
I have
like a
Bailey at
3.
1. I have
Okay.
Bailey at 1 and Reese at 2, in my opinion. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So give me like a 3 through 3, 4, and 5 here.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
a couple of these guys may well not be that first round pick because there's some good depth in the edge class as well.
Yeah. I just really like Bailey's speed. It's unmatched. It's some of the best we've seen in a long, 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 long time. So his ability to just beat you with how quick he is, I love that. And then Reese, and then for me, it's Reuben Bain. I don't care too much about the arm length, which is contradictory to what I said about D'Angelo Pons, but live with it. Just
Hmm.
that's okay. And then it kind of gets interesting for me. I'm not in love with a guy like Keldrick Folk. I think he's more complete than a guy like Shamar Stewart was out of college. I think that's somewhat of a lazy comparison because he was able to convert a lot of those pressures into sacks, unlike Stewart was. But still, just I haven't seen it at the level that I would like to. Akeem Mesidor, extremely old. It scares me
Was
a
it
little bit.
26?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's really old.
So I guess for me, the next best after Bain would maybe be a guy like Cassius Howell. But again, a lot of question marks with a guy like that. So
The consistency from Howell, right? He was, what was he? I think he was like second in the SEC in sacks as a sophomore. Then last
yep,
year it wasn't quite as good. No, him and Shamar Stewart, in fact, were a really, really nasty
yep.
duo for Texas A&M last year. And obviously this year was a better year, and A&M was still very good, and Howell was still solid. But I think he went like 5 or 6 games without a sack. So there are concerns there. I've got the same top 3, except I've got Reese a little bit ahead of Bailey. But I think again, I have no issue with you ranking him ahead of him there. I've got Mesidor ahead of Falk. I know it's the thing about Falk is it's just Stewart all over again. It's a guy with I was just reading this on Dane Brugler's The Beast. A lot of almost plays, right? Like he's in the right spot and he can't finish it. We saw that when we watched Shamar Stewart film this time last year. It was the same thing. I just don't think the Bengals can afford to do that, especially at pick number 10. Another guy I do like, even though I think inconsistency is an issue for this guy as well, is TJ Parker out of Clemson. A lot of people were doing mock drafts last year, and they had both TJ Parker and Peter Woods in the top 10. And obviously, Clemson didn't have the season that it panned out to be. So Parker's kind of slipped a little bit. Still think there's a good NFL player there. We got about 4 minutes
Two
left. Let's
underrated guys. I was gonna say two underrated edges
please.
real quick that I really, really like. Zion Young out of Missouri. I really enjoy his game. And you want
Small,
to talk
but
about
aside from that, he's good.
Zion Young? You said
Yeah,
small? He's
just
6'6".
I think no, it's more edge small. Not
Yeah.
he towers over me, but
Yeah,
like
he's 6'6", 262. He
yeah,
probably needs to put on a little bit of weight.
yeah,
But I frame wise, as terms of like arm length and
yes,
everything,
yes.
incredible. And then you want to talk small. This guy's small, but I really, really like his game. R. Mason Thomas out of Oklahoma.
I like
Uh,
his game too. Would love
I
this in like second or third round.
Yep,
Yep.
yep. Obviously, the injury, he missed some time this year for Oklahoma, but extremely productive football player when he was on the field. The size
Fast,
concerns you.
super
Yeah,
fast,
he's
lightning quick.
he has to be. He's 6'3", 6'2". So at the edge position, you got to be right.
All right, so now we're going to do a quick fire. We got 3 minutes left. Quick fire defensive tackle top three. My top three is Woods, McDonald, Hunter. You got Peter Woods out of Clemson. You got Caden McDonald out of Ohio State. I think both of those guys could sneak into the late first round. And then Banks is somebody who's such an interesting prospect because I think if the injury concerns weren't a thing, I think Banks might be a top half of the first round pick. But
He just
the
turned injured.
injury, the injury concerns, and then the lack of production, I think last year for Florida is also going to put some people off. I love Hunter. I think he's kind of, who Lee Hunter reminds me of the most is a guy who was very familiar with the Bengals is DJ Reader. Just
Yep.
a run stuff, just a physical freak, just eats the double teams and makes it a lot harder for teams to run the football. So, Aiden, give me your top three or just give me a couple. You don't have to rank them, but let me know.
Yeah, because I agree with your list for the most part. But I will say Mina Khan had a hilarious tweet, and it's true. Caleb Banks versus LSU in 2024. If you want to just fall in love with a guy, watch that game. Because he was a freak of nature.
Oh, yeah, he
Yeah,
was nuts in that
he
game. I
went
remember I
he
watched
went
that game live.
he
Yeah.
went ballistic. So if
He won
teams
three sacks, two
if,
sacks,
if
something.
teams if teams reach
Yeah.
on Caleb Banks, it's probably because they watched that 2024 LSU game and said, okay, if we can get that, we're really good.
My
Now,
favorite tape that I've ever watched, and I haven't watched a ton of tape this year, but I've tried my best to get these. The Sonny Styles Indiana tape. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's stuff like it. I don't know what you classify as like sexual material. It's pretty close. It's pretty close.
wow.
It's
And then
it's
another guy you didn't mention, just I'm brushing past that. Another guy you didn't mention was Christian Miller out of Georgia.
yeah, to
I
Georgia.
really like
Good player.
his game. 321, bro. Big fella in the middle, dude. Yeah. Yeah, he
So.
ate his protein.
Yeah,
But yeah,
we didn't get to receivers or running backs or guards. I mean it's fine. The Bengals none of those pick unless they go love, I don't think they'll take any of those positions with that first round pick. We can talk a little bit about that next week. Next week we will do our mock draft. We'll go through all 8 Bengals selections. We'll see what the computer spits out at us and we will give it to y'all. So that'll just about wrap things up for this week of the Jungle Fever podcast. Rain Crowley, I've been Ethan Sargent. Hope you guys enjoyed some of our quick fire prospect breakdowns there. Next week, it'll be draft week. So we'll have some fun breaking down what the Bengals get up to or what we think the Bengals will get up to. We might do a couple mock drafts. I think we did that last year where we did like a what we'll do and what the Bengals do. Because we did do that with our off seasons. So we'll have to go check back and see what they end up doing. So we'll be back with y'all next week on the Jungle Fever podcast.